Hi, this is Professor Salazar, and in this lecture, we're going to talk about social engineering and how important it is when you're talking about cybersecurity. So, social engineering is the ability to trick someone into doing something that they normally would not do. For example, if you get an email and you click on an email and you open a link to a website, it may take you to a website that actually looks like the real website, but in fact, it's a phishing website and maybe a fake website that's somebody's trying to grab a hold of your information. So today I'm going to show you an example of a social engineering attack that's going to show a fake website. And when the victim actually logs into that fake website, the hacker gains credentials that way. I'm also going to talk about different types of social engineering other than phishing. There's other types of attacks like vishing or voice phishing or smishing, which is SMS text-based phishing, and other various forms of attacks. All right. But the important thing to remember is when you're talking about social engineering, it's the ability of a user or let's say, for example, from a hacker's point of view, tricking the victim into doing something that they normally would not do. Like, for example, if someone asks you some personal information that's related to your password, then they may gain your access to your password that way. So a few things to remember as far as passwords go. Always make your passwords complex. Never use an easy password. Always try to change your passwords regularly, and do not ever use the same password on each of your online accounts when you go online. If an attacker gains access to one of your passwords, then they've essentially gained access to all of your passwords if you use the same password for everything. Also, you may not want to use passwords that are easy to guess. And I'm talking about things that or that have words in the dictionary. You don't want passwords to be related back to you, like the last four of your social, or your birth date, or your anniversary date, or the last four of your phone number. Like that's the type of information that can be easily accessible just by going online and doing a search of certain things. All right. So you want to make your password as complex as you can. You never want it to have it relate back to you in any sort of way. You don't want it to be your favorite sport or your favorite food item or anything like that. You want to make it as complex as possible. Think of your passwords being like the key to your online accounts, kind of like your key to your front door is your key to entering your home. All right. The reason we lock our doors when we leave our home is because we have something valuable to protect inside. Right. Same thing with your online accounts. If you want to make sure that your accounts are protected, you're going to use a complex password so that nobody can get into it. Right. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm going to show you a tool called Kali Linux. And it's a Linux-based operating system that hackers love to use to perform attacks on people. All right. So let me first start by sharing my screen. All right. Let me minimize that. And I'm on this website called Kali.org. And on this website, you can download this Linux-based operating system that can be used to perform attacks, right? It can also be used to learn about cybersecurity and learn about penetration testing and ethical hacking. So this thing is not illegal. It could also be used for good purposes, okay? And by the way, you can't just download this and start using it. You would need a virtualization software to set up this operating system and have it run in a separate window. Now, for example, here I'm on my Mac and I'm running a tool called Parallels. And this Parallels is a virtualization hypervisor that will allow me to run virtual machines on my Mac. And all I have to do is just log into the Kali Linux operating system. And it kind of looks like this. All right. Let me exit out of this screen. Let me first make it to where you can see everything. So this is Kali Linux. And it's not your traditional Windows operating system here. All right. There's all these different types of alternative apps that are on this operating system. Instead of Microsoft Office, you won't find Microsoft Office on this operating system, but you may find alternative Office applications like LibreOffice or OpenOffice. Instead of the web browser like Internet Explorer or Edge, you'll find alternative browsers like Firefox or Brave, right? So these are apps that you would find on a Linux operating system. Let me kind of show you what hackers love to do to this Kali Linux operating system. If you're ever like in a public setting and you see somebody using Kali Linux, chances are they're doing something that they shouldn't be doing, especially in a public setting. Like let's say a cafe or some type of a restaurant, or at the airport, at an airport, or at a hotel. If you see somebody using Kali Linux, you would know because of the dragon icon that appears on the desktop, right? It doesn't really look like a Windows operating system. So what hackers like to do before they start launching their attacks is to change the look and feel of their Kali Linux by typing in the command Kali-undercover. And when you launch this command, it actually changes the look and feel of the computer over to a Windows computer. So that way, if somebody walks over somebody's shoulder and takes a look at the computer, well, this just basically looks like a Windows computer, right? So that's something that hackers will do, is they'll change their look and feel of the operating system by typing in this command called Kali-undercover. And if you type it again, it'll change it back to the Kali Linux desktop environment. So let me kind of show you some tools that exist in here. A lot of them are for penetration testing and ethical hacking, but a lot of these hackers will use them for malicious purposes. Like for example, under information gathering, there's these tools that exist that can help a hacker find more information about a user. Like for example, there's a popular tool called Nmap that can be used to search for which ports are open on a firewall. And then you can kind of find out, okay, well, these ports are open. A hacker could try to gain access through those ports if they're open. Under vulnerability and access, they have tools like Nikto, which can be used to find vulnerabilities on a computer, right? And then a hacker can try to use some exploits on those vulnerabilities. And common vulnerabilities would be things like if you have an old version of an app and you haven't updated it for a while, or if you're missing, operating system updates on your computer, you can use Nikto to find those vulnerabilities. There's tools like password attacks that can be used to crack into someone's password, like John the Ripper or Hydra or Hashcat. These could actually be used to crack into someone's account, right? So depending on if you're using a strong password, these tools may not work. But if you're using a password that's easy to guess, that's never changed, or that you use it on the same online accounts as your bank and your email and your social media accounts, it's going to be that much easier to hack into those, all right? I'll show you something else here. There is a word list, and this is something that I was talking about earlier as far as a dictionary that could be used to crack into passwords, where it's just showing you a list of commonly used passwords, all right? So let me kind of show you this real quick. I'm going to type in cat. Let me see what's in here by typing ls. There's a file called rockyou.txt here. And this file contains about 1.5 million passwords that have already been cracked by hackers. So if you want to display this to a user, you could type in cat rockyou.txt, and it's going to show you all the 1.5 million passwords that are commonly used by people. All right. I can let this go for about 2 or 3 minutes, and it still won't get to the end of this file. But a lot of these are what people use in passwords. Usually you'll find names of people followed by certain numbers. Sometimes you'll find profanity because people like to use profanity and vulgar language in passwords. You'll find birth dates, anniversary dates, nicknames, places that people love. But that's kind of showing you that there are word lists where hackers will use dictionary attacks or a list of common passwords just to try to brute force their way into someone's account. All right. Let me go ahead and do this. Let me show you the rest of some of these tools that exist here. Under reverse engineering, under exploitation framework tools, there's a tool called Metasploit Framework that contains common exploits that hackers can use to attack systems that are left vulnerable. So for example, I used this about 2 weeks ago on a class at another school, and I showed students that with Metasploit, if someone is missing one update on their Windows computer, you can use Metasploit to hack into the computer and take over that computer. And once you take over the computer, you're essentially an administrator, and you can turn on the webcam, for example, start recording. You can turn on the microphone and start recording. You can access their entire contents of their hard drives. You can start and stop processes in real time. You could take screenshots of the victim's computer. You can set up keyloggers that'll constantly record keystrokes that the user is typing. This tool is really dangerous, and it's out there because it's used as a framework to take advantage of systems that have vulnerabilities on them, right? There's another tool called SE Toolkit, which stands for Social Engineering Toolkit. And if I open this up, I can also use some of these tools to attack victims and gain access to their online accounts. And I'll give you an example of this. This is Social Engineering Toolkit. I'm going to agree to the license, to the terms of service. And this is what it looks like when you first launch it. So I'm going to make sure that it's in full screen so you can see the whole thing here. This is menu driven. So all I'm going to do is type number 1 for a social engineering attack. I'm going to type a number 2 for a website attack vector. And I'm going to type a number 3 for a credential harvester because I want to grab users' credentials. It's giving me the option of using a web template that's already been created for me, or I can clone any site out there on the internet, or I can create my own HTML site and try to trick a user into logging into that site. So the easiest thing here for me to do is to type a number 1 for a web template that's already been created. And now it's asking me, where do you want all this information to be posted back to? And I'm going to use my own IP address, which is 10.211.55.8. So I'm going to hit enter. And now it's giving me an option of what type of fake website would I like to set up. A website that's requiring a Java applet to run, a fake Google page, sort of like a Gmail login, or a fake Twitter login. So I'm going to type, let's say, for example, a number 2 for a fake Google page to log in with my Gmail. Now what it's going to do, it's going to wait for somebody to access my website that's running on this computer and try to log into it. And once the victim logs into this fake Google page, then I will have access to their username and password. All right. So let me go ahead and leave that up and running. And another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I remember my IP address because I will use this in an attack. I'll type in ifconfig just to see my IP address. And it's 10.211.55.8. So let's say, for example, I go over to my Mac. I open up a new browser window. One second here. And I type in 10.211.55.8. All right. This looks like a real Google page. And in a type of a social engineering attack, what an attacker will do is send the victim a phishing website that'll say, please click here to log into Google or to log into your Gmail. Or if an attacker already has access to a victim's computer, they might drop this website as a desktop icon on their desktop. And all the user has to do is just click on that shortcut and this fake Google page will pop up. So once the victim comes here and logs in with their Gmail account, let me go ahead and demonstrate this. And by the way, this is not my real Gmail, but I'm just going to type in Professor Salazar at gmail.com. And for the password, I'm just going to use whatever. I'll just type in secret password $123. All right. Whatever I type or whatever the victim types into their computer, it's going to bring back that information into my Kali Linux machine. So here I'll click continue. It'll automatically navigate to the real Google page. And at this point, the victim might say, hey, what happened? I just tried to log into my real Google page and it doesn't pop up. But at the same time, if I go to my Kali machine, I already gained access to the user as far as their username and their password goes. And it's right there. I just highlighted it. All right. So that's the type of social engineering attacks that we face nowadays. People log into fake sites, and what can we do about it as a security community out there, or as a community that uses the internet, right? And we use computers on a daily basis. What can we do to protect our accounts? Because no matter how long my password is, this tool still stole the username and password, right? But what we can do is educate users and train them that, you know what, if the URL says that it's not secure, it's probably using HTTP instead of HTTPS, right? And because it says it's not secure and because it's using HTTP, there's probably no certificate on this website. And it basically tells us, if I click on that warning message, it says your connection to this site is not secure. There is no certificate on this website. And by the way, certificates on websites provide encryption. So anytime that a user comes across, let's say, for example, a bank's website or an email's website, you should always take a look at the URL, and you should make sure that the URL changes from HTTP to HTTPS. Because if it does, there's a certificate that's installed on that site, and that certificate is providing encryption. All right. I also wanted to show you some other things here. If I go to this website called hack5.org, this website is used by hackers for malicious things, right? But it could also be used for good purposes, like for learning about penetration testing and learning about ethical hacking. And I don't know if you can see my screen right now, you can see that there's a device right here that kind of looks like your ordinary wireless access point with a lot of antennas on it. This is called a Wi-Fi pineapple. And this pineapple is used to gain access to other people's data and other people's computers. All right. I have one right here, by the way. I don't know if you could see this, but this is a Wi-Fi pineapple. And I have the antennas that come with it right here. And I actually bought this on the Hack5 website, and it comes with a how-to manual of how to use this thing. All right. So what hackers love to do is bring these things to a public Wi-Fi hotspot. Like, for example, your Starbucks cafe. Most people will go into Starbucks, sit down with their computer and do some work, right? Or log in and surf the web, check their email, check their social media accounts. but you never know when someone else has one of these available that's also connected to the Wi-Fi. And when somebody else connects one of these to their Wi-Fi, what they can do is they can set up a rogue access point or some type of an evil twin that's going to mimic the real hotspot. And it's basically going to act as a middleman to from your computer over to the wireless hotspot that you're using. So instead of directly connecting to the hotspot that may be in the building or in the restaurant or at the hotel or at the airport, you're actually connecting to the attacker's device. And that attacker is using a tool to grab all of your information. All right. So just be watchful whenever you're connecting to a public Wi-Fi hotspot. You don't want to just connect directly to that hotspot. You want to make sure that you're connecting with a VPN connection, because that VPN connection is going to make it harder for somebody else to locate you. Okay. There's also devices here like the USB rubber ducky. And if anybody's ever seen one of these devices, this looks like your basic flash drive that you would save data to. But the interesting thing about one of these devices is that inside this USB flash drive, there is a micro SD card that an attacker can actually write a script with a malicious payload on it. And once a victim plugs that into a computer, that script is going to run code and it's going to execute something on the victim's machine. All right. I have a script on my rubber ducky that when you plug it into a machine, it automatically inverts the desktop upside down, just as a joke, right? But there are other scripts out there that hackers can write, and when this thing is plugged into a victim's computer, it can actually write an administrator username and password that the hacker chooses, right? So it's really important to be able to distinguish these. And when you buy these, sometimes they come with the sticker, but a lot of times they don't come with the sticker. So you really can't just tell like, oh, this is a rubber ducky, because these just look like your basic USB flash drive. I have heard instances where in a social engineering attack, some of these will actually be used by attackers pretending to be a potential job applicant at a company. And if you can picture somebody walking into an organization dressed up nice, ready for an interview, the attacker goes up to the front desk and talks to the receptionist and says, hey, I'm here for an interview, but I forgot my resume. Do you mind printing it out for me on this flash drive? The friendly receptionist is going to take that flash drive, plug it into their computer, and print out the resume. But in the background, the malicious code is running and giving the attacker access to the entire computer and possibly the entire network. So this is how dangerous some of these products are that are out there. Hackers can use them for malicious purposes. There's another device called the OMG cable. And this looks like your basic lightning connection that you would use on your iPhone to connect for power, right? A lot of times you might see these used at an airport or at a hotel room where everybody's looking for power, right? But inside this device, there's a little antenna that can transmit all the information that you plug in from your phone to the attacker. So these OMG cables are dangerous as well, because they won't say OMG on it. Like, this basically looks like your type of connection that you would use to plug in your phone for power, or maybe an iPad for power. And hackers can gain access to all of your data on your devices. So, and by the way, there's a lot of other devices here as well. I'm not going to go through all of them, but just be cautious that whenever you're out in public, you want to make sure that you're on a VPN connection. You want to make sure that if somebody dropped a USB cable or a USB flash drive, you don't just take it with you and plug it into your device, because they could be malicious types of devices out there as well. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And I just want to talk about social engineering also for a little bit. be cautious of links that you click. If something is too good to be true, don't click on that link. If you get an email that says, congratulations, you just won $50,000 by clicking this link, we'll send you the money. Don't click on the link. Or if there's a link that says that you get on your phone as a text message that says, congratulations, you won something, or you won a free month of something, don't click on that link. If you don't know where it's coming from, don't click on that link. All right. If a website that you're not familiar with ends in something other than .com or .edu or .net or .org, be cautious of the sites that you're visiting and always hover over the link to make sure that you know where it's actually taking you. All right. A lot of people don't do that. And as far as your passwords go, if you're not comfortable with always having to change your password or using different passwords for different sites, just remember that the more difficult that you make it on yourself, the more difficult you're making it for an attacker to break into your online accounts and to your data. Also, try using an authenticator app like Google Authenticator or Authy or Microsoft Authenticator. There's some really good authenticator apps that when you download them to your phone, they will constantly be generating a random code every single 30 seconds or so. And when you log into an account, well, not only do you have to log in with your username and password, but you also have to plug in an extra 6-digit code, for example, to your account. People don't like doing it because it takes an extra step. But that extra step is going to make sure that your accounts are protected when you're online. All right. So that's my basic lecture on social engineering. If you have any questions, please send me an email and I'll see you next time. Thank you.